I think we're good. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another day of the cut. I am not going to lie to you. I was a bit tired like an hour ago, but I caffeinated myself. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. So we're pretty much back at 100. But like, it's not even like I'm tired, like physically. I'm just mentally kind of drained. But that's not gonna stop us. You know what I'm saying? We still got to put in the work. And also, I'm pretty excited about the gym today. I am pretty excited to go. I'm not sure why. I think I'm just excited to go. But um, yeah, today we're gonna be hitting legs. We're going to be going through a leg workout. I'm hoping we still are able to make pretty good progress on legs. Not that I'm expecting, not to do good or things not to, you know what I'm saying, things not to go well. But like I said, because I'm going through this like fat loss phase. I'm being pretty conscious and I'm trying to be aware for any days where I might not feel the strongest. Not necessarily to just like randomly concern myself or like to try to like do something about it, I guess, right away, but just more so for me to keep note of. Because if that keeps happening over and over and over again, I feel like I do need to change something, right? Because if something isn't working, you're gonna have to change it. But if things are working, then you don't really have a reason to change it, right? So that's just the idea. So today we're gonna be just making sure things are good. We're gonna be monitoring that. Things should be fine, but again, just being aware. We're gonna try to give it our all. In terms of cardio today, I don't, which is kind of a good thing, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna do too much like extra cardio today. I might do some like higher intensity stuff for a little bit, but in terms of like low intensity cardio for today, I'm probably not gonna do too much of that. I feel like I've already gotten a decent amount of steps earlier today. I feel like right now I'm probably I'm at like 9,000, so essentially 10,000. So that's roughly where I want to be at to start off. So there's really no like, I also don't want to overdo it because I just feel like it's really not necessary, at least for right now. So yeah, we already have a decent amount of steps in for today. That's also like a huge pro tip. It's easier for people that have like, say for instance, like a job where they're pretty much on their feet the entire day. But for those of us that don't have that type of job, where maybe you're working like an office job or you're just not moving around too much in the day outside of the gym, um, if you have that type of situation what am I saying? I'm like mixing up my words. This is how I know I'm tired, when I'm just like confusing myself mid-sentence. What I'm trying to say is, if you have a job where you are active on your feet, it's going to be a lot easier for you to hit that deficit or hit that, I guess, cardio that maybe you're looking to implement, because you're already pretty active throughout the entire day. Whereas if you're not, then you just have to add that on top of everything else you're doing, right? So for me, it's kind of the latter. I need to kind of go out of my way to be a bit active, because my job is pretty minimal in terms of exercising. I'm pretty much sitting the entire time. So yeah, but for today we did a decent amount of walking. So yeah, we don't have to do too much extra cardio because of that. Also, before, I felt that, it wasn't pain necessarily. It just felt like more like stiffness. And also, I heard some cracks, which I was like, I'm not sure if that's really normal. I remember last summer I went crazy on the amount of walks and runs, which did help with me getting lean. But what I noticed was after the summer was over, my knees just felt very like stiff, and not like they hurt, they were fine, but they just felt a little stiff, like for a long periods of time. And then I would hear like some abnormal cracking that would happen every time I would stretch or contract my knee. And yeah, that wasn't really happening before. So I was like, maybe I should kind of tone it down on all that, because if you do a decent amount of walking or running, not that it's going to happen, I feel like it probably takes a lot, but I don't know. But I feel like if you're doing a decent amount, that probably does take a toll on your knees. So yeah, I remember last summer I was doing a lot of that, and then after the summer was over, my knees just felt kind of weird. So yeah, I don't want to do that again. Don't want to overdo it. That's kind of like with anything. If you overdo it, you're probably gonna feel something as a result of it. So yeah, I'm gonna try to keep that to a minimal this time around and really just focus more on keeping my cardio moderate, at least to begin with, and then if I feel like I want to add more, then I'll add more. So yeah, today we weighed in at 183, which, if you remember from last week Monday, we weighed in at like around 185. I think it was like 184.7. So we are slowly going down. If you watched yesterday's video too, I talked about how I'm gonna go about comparing my weights. I'm gonna look at it more so as like a weekly thing as opposed to a daily thing. The daily thing and why I measure on a daily basis is more so just for me to get a medium of all my weigh-in entries, and I'm just gonna use that to compare things on a weekly basis. And I talk about why I'm gonna do that, so if you haven't seen that, you can go watch that. But yeah, so that's I weighed in at 183 today, so nothing crazy now, no low weigh-in, or not a low weigh-in, but yeah, things still are going good. I'm feeling good. I'm probably gonna be hitting a new low weigh-in sometime soon this week, if I were to guess, just with how things are going. So yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that. But yeah, no, still feeling good. Today's leg workout is going to be pretty much the same as last week's, so we're going to be focusing on squat. Today, what I actually might do is start with hamstrings, because I used to do that like not too long ago, but I used to do that because every time I started with squats in the beginning, I just felt like my hamstrings and my legs overall wouldn't be like as warm as I'd want them to be, or warmed up as I'd want them to be when I started on my working sets. And I remember I tried doing not a quad exercise, but a hamstring exercise, just so I don't fatigue myself when I enter the squat. So I do a hamstring exercise to essentially get my whole leg warmed up for the squat, but I would still try to, again, go pretty heavy on the hamstring exercise, and I'd treat it just like any other regular exercise. But like I said, by the time I got to doing my squatting, or by the squat for the second exercise, I was like, I felt very good. I felt very warmed up, and I was ready to go. So I think I'm gonna bring that back. I'm gonna try that again, because I'm really trying to prioritize squats. Really trying to make sure that that movement is something that I can just keep pushing heavy weight in, because I don't want to lose strength in that. So yeah, we'll be doing that, and the rest of the workout is going to be pretty typical, so bouncing back and forth between hamstring curls and like leg extensions, so between like quads and my hamstrings, that's what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, and like I said, afterwards I'm probably going to be keeping cardio pretty minimal. Nothing out of the ordinary. I might do some higher intensity stuff. I just personally, and why why I don't usually do high intensity cardio, quite frankly, it's just because I don't like doing it, if I'm being honest. Unless I'm doing some sort of activity. Like, say, for instance, if I'm like swimming, that's really fun for me, and I feel like I could get a good workout out with that. But where I'm going to right now, there isn't a pool or it's not as accessible. So maybe in the future, but yeah, I'd rather just like do steps and like watch something on a treadmill as opposed to like run full speed. Where I only really enjoy running, if I do even run, is if I'm doing it outside. I hate running on the treadmill. Um, I just don't like to do it. And it's not to the point where, I mean, I could run in this weather. I'm just making excuses, to be honest. But it's not the warmest outside right now. It's getting there, but it's not the warmest. So running right now just sounds very unappealing. And so, yeah, I'm just sticking to steady state cardio right now. What I will do sometimes too, I don't know if it's, I'm pretty sure, I think it's considered high intensity if you go like really, really quickly, but I guess it could also be considered low intensity, is the Stairmaster. Sometimes I do that as well. That's also a pretty fun one for me, but I just don't do that one for too long. I used to always do that back in the day, the Stairmaster, and I would pretty much do that every single time I went to work out. Yeah, it would be fun. It would be fun, but yeah, I would not do. I felt like if I do it for too long, I'm guessing it's probably not going to be as fun for me because it does tire me out a lot. But yeah, doing it like before, I used to do it like 15 minutes every single day, and I felt like that was a good time. I personally enjoyed it, so might actually bring that back. I need to fix this stand too. Literally, this camera, it's because the car is moving, but it just keeps like pointing itself down. But yeah. Trying to think if there's really anything else. Not really. It's a pretty chill day. It's a pretty chill week. One thing I guess to talk about, because I did think about this earlier this week, is how there might be some days where you literally just can't go to the gym. Not so much because you're making an excuse for yourself or whatnot, but literally because either something happens or you're just not able to go because of time. And that is, I feel like, perfectly valid. You just have to make sure though that that is a legitimate excuse for yourself. It's not because you weren't able to carve out any time to go, or you didn't put in some effort to at least try to go. I'm talking about like when you legitimately just can't go because you're occupied with something else. And I feel like sometimes that is very, very fair. I know some people say like, oh, if you can't go to the gym, then that just means you didn't put in the effort to wake up absurdly early or go insanely late at night when you have to wake up pretty early the next day. And quite honestly, I feel like that is a bit too extreme. It depends. It depends. I feel like to an average person, it's probably not going to be the case, because if you're not used to doing something, and a lot of the times when someone hasn't gone to the gym before, their like ability to reason with themselves on, hey, I could still make it even if I'm doing something else, it's not really there. A lot of the times they just end up completely ditching it, even though if they put in a little bit of effort, they probably could have made it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more so if you legitimately can't go for a specific reason and you have it scheduled for that day. And I feel like when it comes to those days, what I used to do before, and this is why I'm talking about it, because I feel like I used to kind of navigate that in a pretty poor way. What I would do is, if I knew ahead of time I wasn't going to be able to go, I would essentially kind of compensate for that by going super crazy before or right when I came back. And I found that for me, that was so ineffective. Purely just because it would impact my performance for the next time around. I would essentially be doing unnecessary volume. And when you're training, there's almost this like law of diminishing returns that happens where if you train for a certain amount of time and you really just do a certain amount of workouts, there's going to come to a point where if you keep doing more, you're really not going to benefit too much from it because you're going to be completely fatigued. And so because of that, what happened was I would go crazy and then it would impact my next workout. So it would kind of be a pretty useless workout. Whereas if I just stayed to whatever plan I had, and then sure, I might miss a day, but then come back and just pick it up like nothing ever happened, I would just keep that momentum going. I'd still do well. Where instead, again, I would go in and because I'd be so fatigued from the previous session, I would have a shitty workout, and then the next time around, I could maybe have a good workout, maybe I couldn't, but I'd already be in a sense kind of behind schedule. So that was never really an effective way to go about it. So I guess long story short, what I'm trying to say is if that ever does happen to you, if you legitimately cannot go for whatever reason and you have to skip that day, just pick it right back up the next day, right? Don't skip any days. You know, if you're supposed to hit legs, don't skip legs and just do something else, what you're supposed to be doing the following day, right? Just pick it back up like nothing ever happened. So today, for instance, if I'm gonna hit legs, if I couldn't go today, I'd hit legs tomorrow. And then I just keep that same schedule that I have. I would just move everything over a day. And so this is also where the idea of, and this is why it's super helpful for me personally, my workout schedule, at least not anymore, I don't follow a, I guess, typical like Monday through Friday split or Monday through Sunday split. It does not matter to me what day of the week I'm hitting these workouts. I'm just doing 2 rest day, 1 rest day, and then I repeat that, right? So I treat them more so as like day 1, day 2, day 3, rather than I'm doing this Monday, I'm doing this Tuesday. That way, and I did that very intentionally. That way, if I were to ever miss a day or if something comes up, that is okay. I'm not dependent on, it being a certain day of the week to hit something. I'm just following my program. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I scheduled it that way. Again, one of them, I explained in a different video why I went ahead and did that. The main reason for me was also because of just fatigue. I felt like me following a Monday through Sunday schedule, I felt like I never really gave my body enough rest throughout the week. And there's really no rule that you have to follow a typical 7-day schedule. That's just something that we typically just do, I guess, as people that work out. I don't know how that, I mean, it's pretty standard, right? We just follow that pattern because we do that with everything else, with work, with whatever. But really, you don't have to follow that for working out. You can do like an 8-day or 9-day split, kind of something like what I'm doing, and you'll still be just as fine. And if anything, right, that'll help you if you're running into issues with your typical 7-day split. So, yeah, definitely something to consider if you feel like a 7-day split just really isn't working out for you. And maybe you've tried multiple combinations too. Maybe you've done like push-pull legs, or maybe you tried like doing single muscle groups per day or whatever it might be. But I feel like when I ran through all those different cycles of trying new things and trying to find what worked best for me, and I was never really satisfied with doing a typical 7-day split. It wasn't only until I started doing this where I felt like, oh wow, I'm like really, really making good gains. So yeah, definitely try it out if it's of interest, or at least consider it because it might actually help you. And again, it's not really something I feel like a lot of people talk about, but it can be pretty helpful. Oops. So yeah, I think that'll be that. We'll go ahead and pick this back up. I'm about to enter the gym right now. I'm about to get there. But I'll pick this back up to talk about my workout afterwards, and then we'll go from there. So I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, see ya. Boom! Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back for the second part of the video. So we're just coming back from the gym. A couple minutes ago, I just got back, and I was planning on recording this in the car, but it was just way too dark, and
it just looked really bad on my camera. It was just, again, way too dark, so I decided to record the rest of this back here. Um, but a couple things, I guess, to talk about today. So going into today, like I said, I felt like I had a decent amount of energy. I felt really, really good, and I was really expecting to crush this workout, but it did not go how I anticipated. What I mean is, when I went through my plan of doing hamstring curls first, that felt really good. So I was able to push a decent amount of weight through that. Still pretty much hovering around the same range that I usually do. So really no concerns there. I was just kind of flying through that. Still, again, training with intensity, but didn't really have any sort of concerns there. It wasn't until I moved on over to the squat afterwards when I realized that I couldn't push as much as I usually could today. Today, my goal was to have 315 be my working weight and doing that for around 7 to 8 reps per set. And I usually do 2 sets. But today, I could only push out 4. And then afterwards, I could only push out 3. So it didn't go nowhere near how I wanted it to go. And so as soon as I realized that, I guess in my head, I was thinking the rest of the workout wasn't going to go that great. Um, I felt like during the squat, I was training with and like I was putting in as much effort as I usually do, but for whatever reason, the weight was just feeling really, really heavy today. Um, which in hindsight is pretty normal even when you're not cutting. There are some days where you just will feel off, and today on the squat was definitely one of them. So after I went ahead and completed that, and the reason why I'm kind of even bringing this up in the first place is because I feel like a lot of times when someone has a really bad set or they just don't feel the greatest on a particular workout, they tend to kind of just chalk it up and call it for the rest of the day. And in reality, I don't think that's really the right approach. Assuming you can still keep going. If you would, for whatever reason, just absolutely cannot, say for instance, you feel something hurt or something of that sort, yeah, it is appropriate to stop. But for me, I just felt pretty exhausted after squat. And I just felt like I couldn't put up as much weight as I usually do on that exercise, but I didn't feel terrible. I just felt like the squat wasn't feeling the greatest today. So it happens. And I feel like what I did afterwards, because it has happened before, did help me through the rest of the workout where I finished squat and in a sense, I just forgot about it. I didn't let that really affect the rest of my workout. Sure, I was a bit disappointed that I wasn't able to do as much as I usually do or what I wanted to do today, but I'd rather just forget about it and continue working through my workout as with as much effort as possible, as opposed to just beating myself over it and then hit impacting the rest of my exercises, right? Because again, things like that do happen. I'm not really concerned on changing anything with squat or like making any sort of adjustments to my plan because of that, because it was just a one-time thing, and again, it does happen. So again, as soon as I finished up squat, I went over to leg press and I just tried my best with that movement. Wasn't feeling the greatest on that, to be honest, but I was able to kind of go through and push as much weight as I usually do. And by the time I got to leg extensions, that felt in a sense kind of normal again. So what I'm thinking is happening, just because my compound movements today, they just felt really, really heavy. I think what's happening is just my CNS is a bit shot. So my central nervous system is a bit fatigued because things did feel really, really heavy. But as soon as I moved over to the more isolated movements where I'm not working out as many muscle groups, things felt normal again. And again, I've had that happen before, even when I'm not cutting. And really, the only thing that I do is just let my body rest and try again next time. So I'm not going to, again, change anything with my plan. Tomorrow, I do have a rest day, an active rest day. So I'm going to go through with that. And then I'm going to pick it right back up the next day with a push day. I'm not going to try to, you know, compensate for me doing poorly today by trying to force another leg day ahead of time, or doing that when I'm not supposed to do it. I feel like sometimes people do beat themselves up over that, like especially for the lifters that are pretty serious, where they don't do the bestest on a particular day, and they try to go ahead and maybe do it again the next day. I'm not really a big believer on that. I don't really think you should do that because, in a sense, your body felt that way for a reason. So it's probably going to feel like that the next day if you try to do it again soon after. It's the same reason why people don't recommend PRing multiple times um, throughout the week, right? Or you do it back to back throughout the week, consecutive days, because your CNS will be shot, right? When you go ahead and go through one of these heavy days and your CNS is shot, when I say CNS again, that's just central nervous system. Um, when that does happen, you need to give yourself a bit of time to recover. And so, with the current plan that I have, I'm not going to be hitting legs again until like 5-ish days. So, I have plenty of time to recover and try again the next time. So, you just have to be patient with it, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to try to rush into things, even though I want to. I want to go ahead and give it another go tomorrow, but I know I shouldn't, right? So, you kind of just have to take these defeats, but learn from them. And next time around, just try again. So, just wanted to kind of share that because it does happen even when you're not cutting. Also, there might be just some days where you're not feeling the greatest and you just have to kind of push forward. So, yeah, that's kind of what happened with today's workout. I feel, like I said, as soon as I stopped doing the compound lifts, I felt more normal. So I'm really suspecting that it is just my CNS. Maybe I'm just a bit fatigued today from the previous days. Also, my sleep, and I have just been a bit more tired recently. I'm not saying that just to kind of give myself an excuse, but that could be a reason as to why I couldn't push as much as I usually do. So what I need to do for these next couple of days is just make sure that I keep getting, or try to get, enough sleep, right? Um, so yeah, that's really the biggest thing that I wanted to share with that is, regardless of what happens on a particular day, just get through it if you can, obviously, and then just move on to the next day. Obviously, make note of that. I'm not going to forget about that workout. I'm still going to note that in my journal. I'm still going to log it, but I'm not going to go ahead and make any switches to my plan, right? Because it's only a one-time thing. Now, if for whatever reason I'm not expecting this to happen, but say for instance I get enough sleep and everything should be like I'm doing as everything that I can to maximize recovery, and for whatever reason this continues and it gets worse, now that might be an indication that I need to change something. But I doubt that's going to happen because of how early we are in this cut, and I'm not doing anything too drastic with myself, right? I've only lost, I think, like a pound or like 2 pounds since we started. So not anything really, really major. And a lot of that is again just water weight. So um yeah, just wanted to share that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Cardio, I didn't do any cardio afterwards. Like I said, I felt really the entire day today. And that could be also another reason as to why my legs just didn't feel the greatest, because I already did a ton of walking earlier today. So by the time I got to the gym, I was already reaching pretty much 10,000 steps. Usually I try to do all that stuff after my weight training sessions, just so I can obviously put all my energy into the weight training first and then the cardio afterwards. But, that could be an indication. I've heard also that's why some people prefer to do their workouts in the morning because it's the first thing that they do and their body is fresh. Um, I could try doing that in the future. I've done it before. The only issue that I have with that is I just feel like training on an empty stomach doesn't really work the best for me. I feel like I need some type of food, and a little bit of time to digest it, just so I have more energy. I'm not relying on like caffeine or just trying to like force myself awake, I guess, when I'm going through my workout. But that was years ago. The last time I really trained in the morning was like training in the morning consistently. I think that was like 2022. Um, 2022, 2023. So it's been about like 2 years roughly since I've started or since I did that consistently. And then afterwards, I just switched over to training in either in the afternoon or in the evening. If I have the time, if, say, for instance, in an ideal world, if I could always do it, I would train like around like 2 p.m. I feel like that's the sweet spot for me. Not early in the day, but also not later in the day. It's kind of that sweet spot where you've given yourself enough time to digest the food that you've had for breakfast, assuming you don't fast, and you're pretty much good to go. But depending on what my schedule is, sometimes I can do that now, sometimes I just can't, right? So you kind of just have to accommodate for these things. You have to work around the schedule that you have. Like I said, there's going to be times where it will be difficult, and obviously do your best to try to like put yourself in a position where you're going to feel the best is when you go and train so you can see the best results afterwards. But obviously whatever you have going on, that's probably going to be coming first, right? And I feel like with all of these videos, and one thing that you guys do have to keep in mind is like I'm always trying to give advice with the perspective that I know there's other things going on. This isn't the only thing that you're just doing. I feel like a lot of the content out there, it's great, it's really good content, but there are some times where people give advice almost with the assumption that you have all the time throughout the day to like tackle something, or you have a ton of flexibility with when you're training, when in the reality that's not the case for a lot of people. And I feel like you don't need to give your life up to the gym to see really good results. That's not the case. um, Fitness has really just been a pretty small part of the things that I do, but I've always found time to just obviously improve myself in that area. And I've had to kind of adapt to anything that kind of comes up. So, like I said, sometimes I'm able to go in the afternoon. At one point, I was going in the mornings because that's just what worked best. Now I'm going in the evenings, but whatever cards you're kind of dealt with, just do your best to put yourself in a position where you're going to grow the most, where you're going to see the most results. So if you feel like you're not a let's say for instance you are a morning person, right? And you have work, if you're working a 9 to 5, um, put yourself in a position where you can wake up early to actually go to the gym. But you have to, in a sense, make that effort to actually make that happen, right? No one's really going to do that for you. And I feel like it definitely is hard in the beginning, especially if you're not accustomed to it, but it does get a lot easier. And I guess also on the topic of mornings, the last thing that I'll say, because I feel like I am dragging this out a decent amount, there is, I feel like nowadays, a very common, like, there's a common trend with things that you see online of people saying you need to get up early to be the most productive. So you need to set your alarm, get up early before anybody else, and just start tackling things throughout your day. Um, I actually don't really believe in that. I feel like it's very much dependent on the person. There are some individuals that function great in the morning, but there are some individuals that function even better at night. And ultimately, that choice is up to you. But whatever you're kind of best at, you just have to kind of form your schedule around that, right? So if you're more so of a night person, right, maybe the gym in the afternoon or at night is probably the best thing for you. Even if people are telling you to go in the morning, that might not be actually the best thing for you. You might be better off just going at night, right? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no one right answer to all of this stuff. It's really just going to be dependent on you. Sure, take not, I mean, even with the advice that I'm giving, but also the advice online, right? Take all the advice with a grain of salt. You really have to just kind of have to absorb this. That's what I've done. I've absorbed as much, and I still am. I'm not an expert at any of this stuff. I'm still learning. And I'm doing my best to just see what's kind of the best for me. But in a sense, you have to take what's available online or however you get your information, try it, and then make little changes for yourself. Whatever the changes are, that'll make it the best for you. Not everything that you see online is going to be what's best for you. Even if a lot of people are telling you so, it might not be the case for you. So just something to consider, especially if you feel like you're constantly trying what people are telling you and you continuously fail. There might be a reason as to why you're failing, right? Maybe you should be trying something else that might not seem so apparent. So that's the last thing that I really have to say about that. Yeah, yeah, we'll go ahead and pick this up tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you later. See you guys.